Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah again, and thank you for the introduction. I will share my screen, and I think the topics we are covering have been mentioned, but I don't know if 30 minutes will be enough, but let's see. Let's add as much value as we can. Let's start with a brief intro of myself. I think I have already been introduced, but still, I am based in Berlin. I work at Zalando, the online shopping platform. And within Zalando, we have Zalando's ads division, and I lead the product analytics for the ads division inside Zalando, which is essentially like a startup within Zalando. That's my role. Right now, overall experience has been e-commerce, pharma, and now it's advertising. It's advertising within e-commerce, but advertising or marketing nonetheless. And I've been like Basil Brahim mentioned, I've been an educator. I have been AI and machine learning subject matter expert with most edtech platforms, top edtech platforms in India. I've worked with most of the big names actually, and visiting faculty for MBA programs. Also, a lot of experience in corporate training, so plenty of teaching experience. As a part of this, I've also had the opportunity to mentor a lot of folks, students at different levels in their careers, right? Early career professionals and so on. So I can bring some perspective from there. At the same time, I've been as a hiring manager myself, right? But plenty of years of hiring experience. So I can also bring in some perspective of a hiring manager, what we look at, and contextualize a little bit for the European market as well, right? How things are slightly different over here. Other than this, I'm like a mentor at an AI startup accelerator, author of 3 books, alhamdulillah, and the fourth one is in progress. And that's about me. And I'll talk about the agenda, right? Specifically. So first of all, we look at a high level recruitment process, not from the part where you apply. That's a very specific step in the overall process, right? Because that's where you start thinking, okay, I'm applying here, but I want to give you a sense of the overall process and not just your application and interview part. And then once you do apply, what is really happening behind the scenes and why that is important to know for you, right? So I will talk about that. I will talk about your resume, not your CV. I'll differentiate those as well. Like your resume, what it needs to be and what it needs to do in this current modern environment. And then, if time permits, I would like to do a small demo where I can show you how powerful chat GPT or some generative AI tool, whatever you have access to, how powerful that can be used for resume preparation for a particular job description or for a particular job, right? So hopefully, after this discussion itself, you should be able to see, okay, I don't have to spam 300 job openings with the same resume, and I can do much better, right? And increase my chances. And next two important points is, okay, once you've applied to a company, in general, what should your preparation for the interviews be, and give you some tips based on my own experience, based on my experience with interviewing candidates, and what the best candidates have been doing, right? So inshallah, I'll share those as well. And finally, some tips for leveraging your network over here. But I think it's a pretty important aspect in an environment where jobs are a few. Right? I'm sure you all experience that. Okay, so let's get started, and I'll begin with the first point, which is really overall cycle. Yeah, it's in your mind, you're applying, and there's an interview and so on. But for the company, from the company's perspective, there's a lot which is going on behind the scenes, even before a particular job opening is available on LinkedIn or Naukri or whatever, Indeed.com or whatever, right? So, um, so even before that, there's a lot of activity which needs to happen within the company. So, for example, I mean, I can give you an example. Let's say I want to hire someone in my team. The first thing I need to do, even before writing a job description or whatever, is the first thing I need to do is create a view or vision that, okay, if I get one more person or if I get two more people, how will this benefit the team and how will this benefit the company? That's like the first basic criteria. Without that, no discussion can even happen. So this is the job of the hiring manager. who decides, okay, who needs to now make a good case, who needs to convince people that there is a need for hiring. It's something like, okay, I'm doing so much, we are understaffed. If we had two more people, we could do so and so projects. Right? In the next 2 years, we can do so and so. That's the kind of input the hiring manager needs to prepare. And once the hiring manager prepares this kind of a basic input, right, the hiring manager then needs to talk to the HR, the talent acquisition or whatever, it's different, doesn't matter, but the recruiters. And then there is internally, there is some discussion back and forth what grade this is. So do you want to hire a, let's, because I'm in analytics, I'll use analytics examples. Do you want to hire a junior analyst, a senior analyst, right, a principal analyst, whatever, right? This discussion has to happen, this grading has to happen. You need to decide what, how much budget do you have for this position, and so on. All of this, there's a lot of work which happens, a lot of back and forth on this, right? So when a job description is somewhat solidified, you need the hiring manager also needs to say, this is the task, this is the how the person should be, these are the skills the person needs to have, this is the level at which you want to hire, this is the rough salary range that we have. So all of this is decided first. Then within the company there is some sponsor, either your, for each job family there is a sponsor, or let's say just to simplify this, you have to send it to leadership. Okay, and they will approve. Okay, fine, you can hire two people, right? So all of that happens, and then once this happens, for a final job description is updated based on the feedback and so on, and then you have this proper JD which you see on company websites or LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever, right? So all of this needs to happen before. So whenever a position is open, it's, you have to understand that it's not just someone just let's just hire someone and see. They have had to put a lot of effort, and they have had to justify that we need this position. So this is a high effort task for a hiring manager as well, right? Because imagine I'm doing so many things, and between this I have to do so much to convince people. So when an opening is created, it is generally when there is then genuinely a serious need. It's not just let me just see what I get, and if not, I will not hire. So when they are opening a position, they really need someone. Yeah, that's the usual situation. Now all of this happens. Then there is the talent search part. Now, where this is the whole part where you're sourcing the candidates, and by this I mean, from the company's perspective, where are we getting these candidates from? I could have this position internal on the company's internal career site where no one outside the company even gets to know about it, right? That's a choice the company can make. Or I could say, okay, we want to open this position to outsiders as well. And then it goes on, let's say, the company's careers site. Then let's say some companies are, they want to quickly fill this position. So they say, okay, I'll put it on LinkedIn, I will put it on Indeed or whatever different platforms, right? Job search or whatever, right? So then, of course, there's this extremely important channel of referrals also. Company would want, okay, if I can get a if some of our existing employees can refer, that will also be a good thing. So there are multiple channels through which companies get candidates, right? And this referral channel is actually pretty important. The reason company values referrals is because, see, you're talking about an existing employee referring someone else. That existing employee has gone through your company's hiring process, understands your company's values and all those things, right? Understands the kind of skill level required. So when someone who has gone through the process is within the company, says this other person is good or fit for the job, the company takes that a little bit more seriously than the others, right? So referral is effective, more effective than the other channels in general, right? And from a candidate's perspective also, right? Referral increases the chances of their resume being considered, number one. In some companies, and not all companies, if the referral is more like, okay, there is a system to track the referral progress and so on, it's easy to also know what's happening compared to sending it to some HR and you don't even know what's happening, they won't reply. But if you got a referral, it is also easier to track in some companies. In some companies, there is no transparency, but it varies by company to company. right? So some companies really prioritize referred candidates. That's a good channel. But here's the other thing about this referral. I'll come to it again when I talk about using a network. But it's not the same as in India. Me referring any random person, it's not the same as in India. So I'll come to that part later, right? So how to use referrals effectively. Okay, but at this point, one of the main takeaways is that when the position has opened, you can be sure the company really needs to fill that position. The hiring managers has put a lot of effort in creating the position, and it's not just like that. So it's a genuine need, and they are actively looking for people and so on. And it's a somewhat advanced stage that you see, okay, there is a position open somewhere, right? So it's a serious requirement for the company. And the other important thing is there are multiple channels for you where you can apply as a candidate. Try to go for a referral, and not everyone has those contacts, but try to go for a referral, or you go through the other places where, of course, you have to build a good resume and good profile, regardless of where you go from. Yeah, that's the first part. So, and a lot of activity. So the part, once you've applied, right, for you as a candidate, once you've applied, the shortlisting, screening, this is where in general most of the time we are as a candidates are really focusing, right? We don't see the other part, we don't really care about the other part. But the shortlisting and screening, you just want that you go through, you have the first round of interviews or the first few rounds of interviews, right? That's where most of the focus is. Especially, I've seen students who are saying that I've applied to 80 companies or 100 companies or 200 companies, right? It's obvious these people are just, in a way, effectively just spamming recruiters, right? But they're thinking more on this part, the shortlist, really over here, and just not thinking about any other parts. But anyway, um, I'll come to that as well. So this is the part where a lot of uncertainty comes in, right? You are like, you don't know what's happening. You are waiting for a response, but there is no response for the past, let's say, 2 days. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, it's 2 days. I did not get a response. Or in some cases, it is 1 month and you still don't have a response, right? So hopefully, when we discuss this process, you will have a little bit of clarity as to what really happens once you start applying. Okay, let me go ahead. Okay, and this is really this step is really the big filter. I'll show you so many steps and so many different filters are being applied, and there are many participants in the process, and that's why it often takes a lot of time. Let's start with this very simple example, and I will step by step I will go through this. Right? Imagine this one particular position, and there are hundreds of applications. I mean, really, I'm at Zalando. If you open up a position for some junior developer or junior analyst, applications like 500, 600, even 1,000 applications, right? It's not an uncommon sight. So there are plenty of applications. Obviously, if there's 500 applications, you don't expect the hiring manager to go through 500 applications. No company wants to waste anyone's time doing that, right? And in the current world, we have software systems. So we have software systems which look at the applications effectively for the content and so many other things. I will talk about these. But there is a software screening happening. And at this step itself, what happens is a significant chunk of the resumes are out, or CV. Yeah, a significant chunk of the resumes are just out of the pool. Okay, so disqualified because of whatever. If sometimes you apply for a position and you, let's say, within a couple of hours or the next day you get an automatic rejection email, you can be sure it is a software screening result. Okay. By the way, I've used some proportions over here. These are not like hard set in stone. Different industries and different levels of experience have different proportions, of course. For junior level, there are far more rejections and fewer applications, and far many applications. For specific, very niche openings, there are fewer, let's say, applications and fewer rejections and so on. But it's still, this gives you a general sense of where the rejections are really happening and what really goes to the hiring manager. Okay, and then the first step is software screening. After software screening, let's say you have, instead of from 100, you have, let's say, like 60 applications or whatever. Then what happens is the company uses some additional filters. This is very interesting, actually. So the software, I will talk of this each of these steps in detail, but this is where the company puts some additional filters that we want people more from these kind of experiences or these kind of backgrounds. We want people, who have worked in, let's say, just as an example, I saw this on LinkedIn. Someone was sharing what they were doing for a recruiting company. They said they wanted people who definitely had startup experience, right? So they put some additional filters on top of the software screening results. So they put like, okay, I want people who have, let's say, so and so experience, right? Or people who have done this, and so on. So this is the kind of additional filters people put sometimes, and to further reduce the pool, especially when they have a lot of applications. And then let's say, you have gone through this, and let's imagine you're talking about a very technical position. You're talking about a developer role, or an analyst role, or some technical role. In that case, some companies, or in fact, these days, many of the newer companies, what they do is they have a code test. So some sort of a automated thing, like Codility, or I don't know, there's many different platforms now, but Codility is a decent example. So you can take Codility test is there. It's a time test. You go there, you write code, you try cases or whatever, and that it also filters out a big chunk of people. So as we progress, you see, you started with like hundreds of applications, and by the time you, let's say 100, by the time you come down, you've already reached like a very small proportion of it, right? And this is when, after the Codility stuff and everything is done, this is when the recruiter actually comes in. So there is no HR lady looking at every resume you send, right? So people think, oh, it should be attractive to the person looking at it. Actually, no. In most cases, your resume doesn't even reach a human. It's like very far down the funnel that it actually reaches a human somewhere, right? So this is where the recruiter comes in. And what the recruiter does is, they do their own assessments. Thanks for the creativity, Manaf. We don't need it though. Okay, they do a lot of own assessment. Okay, they look for certain things. I'll talk of these things also. They look for certain things. Okay, this guy looks fine. Career gaps, whatever, and so on, and where they are, what they need. So these kind of things. So they also look at these things, and then they further narrow the pool. Okay, and finally, after the recruiter also selects shortlists a few resumes. These, let's say 5 or 6 or something, are finally taken to the hiring manager. Right. So this is really, if you see this funnel, what's happening is that from 100 applications, perhaps just 20 reach a human, and which is the HR lady, and who's not even the hiring manager by. And then a much smaller really reaches the hiring manager. So this is really what you're dealing with over here, right? You're not dealing with a human, you're dealing with all of these things over here. Let me just disable annotation for the others. And can someone just hide the annotations which are on screen right now, made by Manaf, so that it's not distracting? All right. And then again, so this is really the funnel, right? There's a big chunk which just goes away, and very limited chunk reaches the hiring manager. All right, now let's look at these steps in somewhat detail. The application tracking system, first of all. Okay, the ATS system, if you see, is I think people have this idea it is the filter, really, right? And you keep talking about ATS compliant resumes, Europass, so many things, right? But what does this really do, right? What does this really do? What does it score on, right? So, like I said earlier, in general, you will have an application tracking system going on. Your resume will be first read by a software, not by a human. And what does that software system really do? The software system parses or extracts the content from your resume, right? And what does it look for? It looks for two things. First is it looks for the content of the resume. So does it have the relevant keywords? Because for each job role, you will have relevant keywords. Yeah, this is what I want. These are the skills I want, and so on. So does it have the relevant keywords? Plus, these days now there is a lot which happens in the software systems themselves. They can be like really very complex. So you can say, I want so and so relevant skills. I want uh, only these kind of educational degrees. I want resumes which are more, which have more results or more action words. That kind of thing. So you can give rather arbitrary criteria to the software. You can say, I want these kind of resumes, and the software will do that. That's really, I mean, softwares are really powerful now. So there is definitely the content itself, what is inside of it, the keywords and stuff. But it also looks at the formatting of it. It should be cleanly formatted, easy to read, standard headings and fonts. It should not have one font somewhere, another font somewhere, and so on. So all of this, is not good. It gives you a bad score. If your grammar is bad, it gives you a bad score. So it does look at both the content itself and also the way the content has been expressed. So if you have really good experience, but you put it in like very rich formatting just to impress people or whatever, you thought, okay, I should make a very beautiful, attractive resume which will just wow the hiring manager, and it's rich formatting with multiple pictures, this that. But if the application tracking system is not able to read it very well, you lose, right? So one right up front, right? One important thing is it should be a clean format, standard headings and fonts, and consistency, readability, good grammar, all those things. And again, these things are now, I will talk about later. These things are very standard now. You can check for ATS compliance and ATS score and everything. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
I think we planned it as taking questions in the end.
Okay. Okay.
Should
Perfect.
we do it otherwise?
If there is any pressing question right now, you can ask. Maybe I can give a couple
Yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah. They are free to. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone has questions? I'll wait for a few seconds. Maybe raise your hand or put in chat.
I just have
Noor Hussain asks in chat, do we have any online tools to do ATS checks? Yes, Noor. I will share one particular tool. What I think they have, the number of times you can do it for free is limited. So, you can't use maybe you can do multiple trials. I don't know, but there are ATS checks. There are tools which are there for free. That's one. Plus, I mean, I'll show you also one more thing, very interesting thing. Many of these newer generative AI tools can also help you with that. Yeah. Anyone else? There are a few questions about this resume specifically. I have used tools like Resume Worded. Okay. Then I think if there are very specific questions about resume formatting and stuff, I will come back to this because we have a specific slide for this. Okay. Are there any other questions at this point? Okay, I have question regarding contents inside. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Because all of these are more about the resume specifically. I will address these questions when we come to that section. All right. So, and I can also show you how to evaluate those things. Okay, cool. So I think most questions are on this line, and I will not take any more questions. I will just go ahead then, yeah, and we'll come back to these questions for sure, inshallah. All right. Now, this was about the second step. The first step, the first major step is software screening, and this is really where a decent chunk goes out. Okay. The second part is the additional filters. So after the software screening thing, also you have some further filtering depending on how many applications you have. You expected 20 applications, you got like 100 applications. So you kind of want to filter it further and so on. In general, this is one of the major aspects actually. In general, um, companies have some sort of a minimum qualifications and they have a preferred qualification. Yes. And minimum qualifications is, at least 3 years of experience in this field. Okay. Preferred qualification, it will be good for if they have some Azure certification. This is a preferred. This is usually not a mandatory criteria. So like this, they have minimum qualifications, and like multiple 3, 4 minimum qualifications, and they use these as further filters. So they say, okay, I have like 100 candidates now. From these, remove all the people who do not meet a minimum qualification. So out. Then they could say, okay, now I had these list of preferred qualifications as well, right? So what I do now is, now from 100 I have like 50 or something. But these candidates also, I need to have some sort of an ordering. Yes, I cannot just go randomly across them. So what I do now is I have these preferences as well. And the ideal candidate is the one who meets both the required and the preferred qualification, right? So the required is a filter, preferred is the ranking of sorts. So now what you do is, based on these important features, the candidates are ranked. So you still have, from 100 you got to 50, let's say, or 30 or whatever. You still have 30, but now they are ranked in an order such that the highest candidate is the one who has the best experience, who meets all the minimum qualifications and meets maximum of the preferred qualifications as well, right? So when a recruiter, let's say, the HR person, recruiter who goes there, they don't look at number 30, they look at candidate number 1, then 2, then 3 in an order, right? So that's also what is happening. There is a ranking going on. Okay. This step is again, I think depends on the company, depends on what they're looking for, depends on the software, but typically there is this step which makes further filtering and some sort of a ranking, so that the recruiter doesn't have to look at 50, looks at a pipeline. It goes from top 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay. Now, after this is the code test. I mentioned this earlier. I think there's not much to discuss. Codility or whatever, they create a test. You have to pass the test with a certain number. Once this test is done, this also becomes one more way to rank the candidates. Yeah. So, okay, people who are fine, who are meeting these requirements, but they also did excellent in the coding test, rank them higher. Okay, something like that. Or, consider only candidates which have, let's say, more than a certain codility score. It could be used as a hard filter also. Okay? Anyway, so that's then comes the recruiter, and yeah, this is now finally where the first human is having a look at, right? So out of maybe 100, maybe only 20 of you make it to the stage, right? Now what happens? This is a very subjective part, right? And the recruiter, the person is assessing your resume based on their understanding of the role. Remember, the job description was made by the hiring manager, not by the recruiter, right? The hiring manager understands exactly what skills are important, what scores are important on which aspect, whether SQL is more important than Python, and all of these things, right? The recruiter does not understand these things so much. So, but the recruiter still has a sense, these are the skills required, but the recruiter, they might not know each of these details. So they still, try their best, but it's important to note that, they have their own understanding, and it might still not be completely in alignment with what the hiring manager does. But regardless, what a recruiter tries is to do some sort of a further re-ranking. So recruiter looks at the software scores and everything. Recruiter looks at your codility, let's say coding scores. And then recruiter anyway has list a ranked order of things. Recruiter might look at, okay, I want to quickly filter and select the top 10, for example, right? So what a recruiter does now, wants to do a quick thing. Okay, which one do I check first? And what they really typically do at this point is, they take a resume, they quickly go through it. Does this seem interesting? And they put it on one side. So all the ones they seem interesting, they put it on the left, right? Or whatever, put it on one side. And these are now the more, say, higher ranked. The recruiter doesn't really reject people right away. It just does some sort of a ranking again, right? So that what the recruiter wants to really do is take, like, let's say, the top 5 candidates to the hiring manager, right? Because the hiring manager is expecting that the recruiter gives them the best candidates. Okay? So the recruiter again, looks at these resumes, and here is the one problem. Okay, because the recruiter knows I don't understand these technical words so much, right? Did some Python thing to do something. The recruiter doesn't understand. The recruiter trusts that, okay, fine, the software has done its job. The hiring manager will also do their job. So I don't need to worry about all of these technical details. What I want to do is just quickly assess if this guy or male, female, whatever, sorry, what is suitable for further steps. Okay? And for this initial screening, they don't spend a lot of time. And that's a fact actually. And many studies show that they spend like less than 10 seconds on average initial screening. Some people contest this that, but I think it depends on the company to company and number of applications, right? If you have like 100 applications, why would you spend like 5 minutes on each, right? But in general, they quickly breeze through a resume and see, this seems fine. Let's rank it, kind of. Let's take it into consideration set. Right? So they spend little time, and what they really want to do, if your profile seems attractive, what they do is they further filter, let's say 10 resumes, and those 10 they will look into a little bit more detail afterwards, right? So let's say they got a pool of 30 now. They don't go through all 30 in great detail. They quickly go through and then, okay, further identify top 10 or something. And let's say they see a profile, they say, okay, this looks fine, but I don't know, let me just talk to this particular person. Let me see if their salary expectations are in line with what we have. Let's see if, they have a gap on their resume. Let's understand from them why there is a gap. They're changing industries. Let's ask why they're changing industries, right? Because at the end, right, this is a long process. It's an expensive process for the company also. And they want to make sure the candidate they get is a good quality candidate who will join. So they are also looking for candidates who have the highest chances of joining the company and staying in the company for a while. Because HR also has a lot of metrics on their side. How fast they hire, right? The people we eventually hire, how long they stay, right? Whether we were able to retain them. So there's a lot of things. So they're ideally looking for candidates who will come, who are likely to join. Salary is also fitting. And once they join, they will also stay in the company. This is what they're wanting. So they might set up a screening call with you, 15-30 minute call to understand you, ask for salary expectations. If they're not sure, they might even consult the hiring manager at this point. Okay. All right. So this is what the recruiter's step is. This is again a very important step. Okay. And of course, at this point, one more thing I have to add is, the other people who the recruiter deprioritize are not gone. They're still there in the consideration set. So they just took a top 10. If they find something in top 10, perfect. If they don't find something in the top 10, they kind of revisit, okay, number 12, number 13, number 15, to see if they find something over there. So it's kind of just a ranking or prioritizing. Okay, cool. Finally, the hiring manager comes, and this is where the hiring manager starts with the actual interview process. And here's the thing, right? The hiring manager is receiving only a small fraction of the initial applications. And the other important thing is that most of this filtering has been done by systems or people who are not the hiring manager. So you see what happened, right? The hiring manager is really the one who knows exactly what they want, but the decisions are being made by software, a code test, some recruiter, some filter, who are not really the hiring manager. So what happens is that if you design your resume with the hiring manager in mind, you are at loss, because your resume actually needs to impress three parties, right? The ATS system, the recruiter, and the hiring manager. So you have to design accordingly. Don't think of the hiring manager, think of the software, the recruiter, and the hiring manager. So, and different people look at different things. So what does each of them look at? ATS, I already mentioned to you. ATS looks at the role relevant keywords, action words, skills, qualifications, the formatting, readability, fonts, and heading stuff. Fine. The recruiter looks at which key skills have you highlighted. Is it relevant or not? They look at your experience. Okay, is it so relevant or not, right? Your education, because they have in their mind some notion, right? These colleges are better than whatever, right? What kind of education you have. Then they're looking for some personality traits. So, what are your achievements? Professionalism. Is this a professional tone? Did they put a picture where they are, I don't know, in some party or whatever? So all of these things, right? They try to create a first impression of the person really over here. Then stability in your career. If they see, I mean, this is I think again debatable, but still, imagine someone who's hopping job every single year, and they apply to your company. If you were hiring someone, you want to stay, you want them to stay, will you consider them over someone who is staying in each company for 2 to 3 years? Of course not, right? So stability, and of course it should be easy for them to also go through, so that even if they're not so technical, they should understand what's the profile, whether there is a fit or not. So recruiter looks at these things. This is where something like, okay, there is a gap in the resume. So recruiter would be interested, okay, why is there a gap in the resume and so on, right? So these are the kind of things which a recruiter is looking for, like a well-rounded profile, professional, and of course, if the person is, extra achiever, then of course, why not, right? So you can impress over here. The hiring manager looks for highly relevant experience. When the hiring manager, let's say when I read a resume, I'm looking really for key skills. I want experience to be very relevant. I want results to be highlighted. I don't want to be looking like, oh, this person did what they were told, but I don't know whether what they did was valuable or not, whether it gave any result or not, right? So that's important. If you can show results or achievement, that would be really nice for me as a hiring manager to consider you. Then language is important. Action words. I did this, I did that. It is helpful. It's a psychological thing, I suppose. This kind of things are automatically more attractive, but that's one. Then there is a personal branding thing. So let's say someone says there's two candidates, one who just has some list of projects, which are like kind of, standard projects. And the other one has a list of projects and also says, hey, this is my GitHub portfolio stuff. Or, hey, look, this is, my Kaggle portfolio where I won so many competitions or whatever, right? So if you have certain things, some work to show, as a hiring manager, that will impress me far more than how cool your or well formatted your resume is, right? So hiring managers looking for competence, right? Like actual competence, people who get things done, who are interested in what they're doing, right? Not just some passively guy who's just following some orders. No, right? So relevant experience, high competence. This is what I'm looking at. The recruiter will take care of the other aspects of the people staying and stability and so on. Okay, so here and also just some very general tips, right? A good CV in general characteristics should be that it should be good resume. Sorry, not CV. That's a different thing. I'll talk about it, but it should be short. Let me just correct it right away. It should be resume. It's not a CV. Okay, good resume. It should be short. Okay, it should not be long. It should be max 2 pages, even for experienced professionals. So if I make a resume right now, 15 years of experience, max 2 pages. I've seen people with 3 years or 4 years of experience make a 6-page resume. It does not make any sense. I will not read all of that, right? I want that as a hiring manager, if I read the resume, all the important information should be available quickly. The HR, imagine the HR who's going through a resume in 10 seconds. Do you think they will read 6 pages? Of course not, right? So for early career professionals, 1 page is more than enough. If you're not able to create a 1-page resume, then there's something wrong. You're not able to, let's say, identify what is right, or maybe you're just stuffing thing which is not really valuable. 1 page for early career for students is more than enough. For experienced folks, 2 pages. For exceptional, like CXO level folks who want to show some stuff, maybe 3 pages, who knows? But yeah, but in general, 1 page is good, 2 pages max, yeah. It should be well structured, professional. Ideally, if you have some links to personal portfolio, profile, GitHub, it will also be good. And I think a tip really is customize for each job. Use ATS compliant templates, use ATS checkers. I'll talk about each of these. So essentially, okay, first of all, when people say I applied, people say, it's very common, I'm on groups. They say, this is my resume. I applied to 100 companies. I did not get any response. And my first question really is, how can one resume fit 80 jobs? Are those 80 jobs exactly the same? Of course not, right? So ideally, you have as many resumes as the number of jobs you have applied to. Simple as that. Unless you're doing blind application, like, yeah, I applied to 20 companies today, just apply. That's a different topic. But if you're doing some more targeted application, if you're doing it properly, you look at each job description, you look at what keywords they have, you update your resume to match it closely. And honestly, of course, you don't just stuff keywords because they will figure out you're bluffing. But still, you have to, for each job, right? you have to have a separate resume essentially. That's all really. Be careful, be selective about what you apply for, and update your resume. And earlier, oh, I don't know what to do, how to update was an excuse, but now, right, your template is fixed, right? You know where to put the skills, you know where to put this, you know where to put that. All you really have to do is reorder things a little bit, put some keywords before the other keywords and so on, or remove some keywords, add keywords. So it doesn't take a lot of effort, right? So there is no really, there's not much of an excuse to say, oh, I don't modify my resume, I just use the same resume, right? So definitely customize resume for each job. A standard resume doesn't work at all. I think it's very easy to identify, a generic resume from a well-crafted one. And if I see a generic resume, it's off-putting because it gives me a notion that the candidate is just spamming, right? It's not targeted, so not very valuable. Then there are many templates, many websites which give you these ATS compliant templates, and you can find them online also. You can, or maybe check some. If you're studying somewhere in a program, masters or whatever, they will give you these templates, right? So they will give you all of these things for sure. Then there are ATS checkers. So there are softwares, like I said earlier, where you put in your resume and they give you a score. Maybe one time it's free, other time you have to pay, whatever. But anyway, but I think even if you have to pay, maybe for one time it makes sense. It's worth investment. Use generative AI tools for resume analysis. This is something I will show in the next 10 minutes, hopefully. I don't know, maybe I have to go a bit over time, but we are close to the end. And then, if as much as possible, get it reviewed by engineers or someone in the company, right? I think that would be really good. If you have a friend in the company, get it reviewed by them, right? And that would be the best. So use multiple things. So use the ATS stuff, ATS compliant techniques, all those things to make sure the format is good, okay? But then for each job, you have to customize a little bit the text, the word which you put, the skills which you highlight over there, right? And whether or not your resume is looking fit for a particular job opening, you can do one reviewed by someone, some senior, or you can use some generative AI tools for resume analysis also, okay? And this is what I want to show you in a minute. But some other general things from a hiring manager perspective, okay? A good LinkedIn profile or portfolio is very helpful. That just shows, okay, who I'm dealing with, Okay, do you like to swim? I don't care in general, unless the role is for a lifeguard or something. Your 10 standard marks don't matter. Really, I don't know why many people put, even like 10, 15 years experience, people put, okay, I got so much marks in 10th, fine. Unless it is relevant to the role, I don't care if you know Urdu or Malayalam. It doesn't really matter. Unless it is. So let's say you have German certification of a certain level, it helps for the role, then you put it. But why will I want to know what you speak at home? I don't care. Your date of birth is also not super interesting, by the way. And people think we need to put it. Here in Europe, you don't need to put it. Right? So you can minimize the information you put over there. Whether you want a picture or not, it's your choice. Some people like putting pictures, some people don't. It's up to you. But yeah, different people have different opinions. Yeah, if you did a debate in 12th standard or whatever, it's really good for you. But again, unless it matters to the job profile, I don't care. And also, like I said, one-page resume is enough for early career people. Don't make it too long. Max 2 pages, not more than that. And the important distinction: this is not a college or master's application, where you need to show this well-ordered personality that I'm not just technically good, but I'm also like nice in this, I'm nice in that. I was in the college debate team and the chess club and so on. This is not really the same, right? I understand if you want to do it for your MS application, but that's not what is happening over here. Here you want to be relevant, you want to be brief, you want to be to the point, right? That's what really matters over here. Okay? And as a hiring manager, this is what I care about, right? So please don't put these things. You are wasting space, which is valuable space. Okay. All right. Now I'll give you a small example. Okay. I don't know if most of you have ChatGPT or not. I assume you have some access to GPT-4 or something, but I will show this to you in any case. You can use whatever tools you want to use. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is this. There is one particular job post. Okay. I'm going to let me see if LinkedIn gives me, it gives me this. Okay, so there is this job post on LinkedIn. The whole job description is here. You can see my screen. I imagine you can see that I'm on LinkedIn. Okay, so this is the job post, and there is my older resume. Okay, and what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to use ChatGPT to see how I can analyze my resume and how whether it is a good fit for this particular role or not. Okay, so let's get started. So what I'll do is this. Where is this ChatGPT window? Here. Okay, so I'll just open a ChatGPT thing. Just up so I can see it better. All right, and prompting and all is not so important. You can write whatever, but I will enter a job description. Yeah. Then a process on processing, just output process. So basically, I don't want any output or description or whatever. I will paste the job description, and I just want these folks to take this. So I'm just copying this JD. Okay, qualifications, all of those things are here. Okay, additional qualifications, preferred qualifications, all of. I'm literally just copying this over here and pasting into ChatGPT. Okay, and so it will on just say processed. Okay, so it will go through this and it will just say processed, done. Okay, so I've given it the job description. Now what I need to give it is the resume, right? So I'm going to give it to a resume. So desktop resume. Oh no, it's not here. One second. Let me just check. Yeah, it's here. I've got it. I'm going to give it a resume. Here. Adding my resume on processing, just output processed. Okay, this is an old resume, and what I'm going to do is this. So now what is happening, right? Now ChatGPT, or it could be something else if you want, it has both things inside. One is the job description, right? Second, it also has my resume. And now I can ask questions about this. Okay, based on the, or you can give me ideas what to ask. Based on the resume and job description, right? What are the key skills missing from the resume? Key skills for the job missing from the resume. Be concise. Okay. And here is what it is. Okay. This guy says, okay, hands-on implementation experience, such specifically mentioned areas of analytical data platforms, these database migration. These are the things you should have in over there as keywords. Okay. Azure certifications, this is specifically these kind of things are missing from this. Knowledge of competitive landscape, whatever, we don't care what it means, but these things are not mentioned, and I can confirm these things are actually not mentioned in my old resume, yeah, because these are not so relevant, and that position actually is not relevant to me. But just to give you an example, but essentially it gave me these kind of things. Okay, now I can ask the same thing also. Based on the resume and job description, what are important skills that my resume has for the job? Right. So now it can give me a different response. Okay. So something like this. Okay. They want pre-sales and consulting experience. So they say, okay, your roles at Zalando and Flipkart, IQVIA, ES demonstrate substantial experience in consulting and problem solving. Then the company wants data and AI expertise, right? So proven experience in machine learning, all those things, you have this. This is good. They want technical leadership, which you have. They want stakeholder management, which you have, right? They want recognition and awards. So, you have these, right? So it's doing very nicely. It is telling you, okay, this is what they want and this is what you have. And if I ask what is missing, they say these are the things which are missing, right? So you see, right, this is so easy. Now I can also ask, okay, suggest some skills or keywords to add in my resume. Okay. And if I do this, now again it will say, okay, to enhance your resume and align it more closely with the job description, consider adding the following skills. So, on Azure technologies, you can add so and so things. On certifications, you can add so and so things. Or AI solution development, you can add these things. On landscape, you can do these things. You see, right? This is extremely, extremely valuable. So you can look at this thing, you can decide for yourself, okay, makes sense. This is something I should add, or this is something I should add, and so on. Right? Incorporating these keywords will help your resume to get better. So it can analyze your content, resume's content really well. It can analyze the JD very well, and then it can give you all of this analysis. You can be more creative, ask more questions. You can say, hey, I want to highlight my experience in such project. What is the right way to write it? It will even tell you how to write it in a single bullet point. So, okay, so this is really good. You can be more creative over here. You can get a lot more done from this. So definitely strongly recommended, right? This is very good stuff. This is the kind of stuff where you would reach out to some very seniors and experts, and this does even better job than that sometimes. And the other part of it, okay, does the resume look ATS compliant? Well, I don't know what is the right way to call it, but is the resume good for ATS softwares? What software? Yeah. Or you can ask a better question also, right? So, okay, so see, your resume has strong content, okay? But to optimize it for ATS, consider use standard section headings like work experience, education, skills, and so on. Keyword optimization. And I think I have a table over there, okay? So it tells me don't use table. In fact, I have graphics also. It tells me don't use graphics. The font I used over here was, I think, Proxima Nova. So it tells me to use more common fonts, right? And my dates, I did something, but it's not so important, but still, contact information is clear at the top, right? So it also, look at this. Here is an optimized version of your resume structure for ATS. Okay, so it has this, it has profile summary, it has skills. You look at this, right? It is giving you a modified version of your resume with some specific suggestions for this particular job. This is crazy, right? And then the work experience, it suggests the work experience, how to write this over here, right? For each of the companies, and then the education, and then the awards and honors that I had won, right? And then finally it says, okay, contact information is at top, use clear things, use keywords on job description. And it gives you very specific suggestions for ATS school as well. So I hope this gives you a good idea of how to really leverage generative AI, right? And really, this is a very good first version of the resume, the format, the way it gave you, right? It modified your existing format and so on. Of course, you don't have to use it as is. You can say, okay, you can change something and so on, but it gives you a very good idea of how to go about this. Okay, put contacts on top, skills and everything. This is really extremely powerful, folks, and I definitely strongly suggest doing this. Yeah. So use these tools. Some of these are free. Some of these, have to ask you to pay. But of course, if it gets you a job, it's worth the investment, right? In some cases. So let me come back to this. Okay, and I hope the demo was useful. Finally, I would say preparing for the interview and leverage network. So please solidify your technical skills, relevant skills, right? You're spamming, I know you're spamming, some of you are spamming multiple companies, but be sound in fundamentals. Understand the interview rounds and what they want to do. Let's say you got through the screening, right? You have a chance with the let's say recruiter. You can make sure to ask them what the process really is, what the process is and so on, and what each of the competencies tested will be, and then prepare for it accordingly. Yes. Work on your introduction. This is very important, folks. So see, whenever I've seen this, okay, whenever someone asks you, okay, introduce yourself, people just go on repeating exactly what is there in the resume. See, they already have your resume, and this is your opportunity to really impress the other person. Why do you want to waste it on just regurgitating facts which are available in your resume? In fact, this is your opportunity to show or highlight things which don't come out so strongly in your resume, right? This is where you can say that, this is, in general, this is how I am, this is what I'm looking for, right? You can show them that, you are enthusiastic. You can show them that you are interested in the company and that you have certain questions, right? Okay, so that's about. Okay, so anyway, so prepare answers for common questions, and again, importantly, understand the company values to be a culture fit. Most companies now have a HR round, which is a culture fit round, especially here in Europe and all. They take this very seriously. So they will ask you behavioral questions. So make sure you prepare for those culture round as well. You can do this by going to the company website, look at their things, what they have written over there, to understand what their culture is, what their values are, and so on. Make sure you answer accordingly. Prepare a list of questions to ask. Ask questions. Whenever company says we have any questions, people don't say no questions, but really ask questions. And this also shows, first of all, your seriousness for the role, and also shows that you are thinking through. And so this gives a seriousness and a thinking person kind of impression, which is very important. Okay? And finally, it doesn't apply all the time. When you're desperate for a job, you don't care. But if you're not desperate for a job, right, try to evaluate the company and the manager as well, because you don't want to, you just got a job and 6 months later you're looking for another job, right? So this is more for people who are in existing jobs. You might be desperate to just leave, and then you realize the other company is also bad. You want to leave again in 6 months, right? So they're evaluating you. You also evaluate them. Does it look like a decent company? Does it look like a good place to work with, and so on? Okay. Right. And finally, leverage your network really. Use student or alumni networks for job hunt and referrals. Connect with recruiters from your target companies, right? Use LinkedIn, really engage with people. Use LinkedIn. LinkedIn really is now your digital reputation. I undoubtedly, without fail, I look at the resume of the person who has applied, whose application has reached me. They often add it in their resume, and I look at it for sure. This is really important. Okay, so start getting used to LinkedIn. People say, well, what do I do? No, go there, be active, follow right people, build your perspective. Even if you're not posting all the time, just follow right people and build perspective about the thing, right? And engage with recruiters, engage with employees from a target company, so that later they could refer you as well, right? So someone who they see posting, they have greater credibility in their mind, rather than someone who randomly reaches out and says, can you refer me, right? So no. Right? So LinkedIn is very important, and this is why I suggest, okay, right now, all of you, right, take your phone out, either find me on LinkedIn and add me on LinkedIn right away. Okay, if you either search for my name or use this barcode or something, add me on LinkedIn right now, and make sure me, other people, who are in target companies, just keep following these people. Okay, I'll give you a minute or so. I think my talk is over. Otherwise, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm here. Okay. Okay, but yeah, make sure you are using LinkedIn, folks. Many students make this mistake. I ask them, are you on LinkedIn? Yeah, I am there, but I don't do anything. I'm not there. These kind of things, but don't make that mistake. It is truly becoming your digital reputation right now. Okay, and there are some questions really in the chat. I'll go through them, but make sure you folks are adding on LinkedIn. Okay, don't miss it. And me right now, add your other fellows in the group, in this Velicham group, and everyone, make sure you add each other. Okay, for sure, use this thing. Others are using it. I've seen people from different communities are leveraging it very well. Somehow we are not, right? So please use this. Shamir asks, am I open to resume review? I mean, no, unfortunately, I don't have that much of time. I'm involved with many things. So yeah. Benjamin asks, what's the difference between recruiter and, yeah, so Benjamin, I use the term recruiter very loosely. It could be referring to a talent acquisition person. Basically, imagine some HR person, right, who's managing the hiring process. They work with different managers, different hiring managers for different requirements. Yeah. So I am the hiring manager for my team, but I will coordinate with an HR person for this. So that HR person I was referring to as a recruiter, and I am the hiring manager. Okay. Now, I think there were some questions from earlier as well. I'll go in that order. I have used tools like Resume Worded. What does this score mean? What is a good score? I have absolutely no idea, Munasir. But maybe you can check out the help or customer support on Resume Worded, because if they're giving you a score, they should explain. But if it's just another ATS software, then maybe these are the things I already mentioned, right? There are always contradicting opinions regarding usage of Europass format. What is your? I have no opinion on Europass format really. I don't care. People, I've seen many resumes with the Europass format and the Euro sign. I don't care. If it goes through the ATS software, that's all you should care about as well, right? So, in fact, my template, I don't even know what format it is. It's a very simple, very old school template. It seems to work fine. There's a question about projects or work experience that we have to mention. Do I need to write those also according to keywords specified in job description? Okay, I shouldn't see, imagine this, right? So see this your resume, this is prime property, and every word you write over there has to convince me that you are the best candidate for this job. Okay, and in that regard, I don't know. First of all, if don't do keyword stuffing, just don't use keywords just for the sake of putting keywords. Make it organic, make it sound natural and real, right? If your project describe it in a relevant manner, that's more than enough, because you would be mentioning those keywords earlier in the keyword section anyway. So don't stuff those keywords later in the project section. But of course, keep it relevant to the skills or the things which are important for the role. Yeah, but you don't have to stuff keywords everywhere, basically. Okay. There is a lot of negativity surrounding current hiring market in Germany. As a hiring manager, what are your insights regarding the current situation and forecast? If I compare it to, let's say, 2 years ago, definitely the hiring has gone down. In fact, last year was a very difficult year. I believe many companies were laying off. Right now, also, companies are very, a little bit more conservative at this point, especially with all the layoffs happening around. And it's most of them just trying to optimize and make more profits or whatever. But at this point, I would say the hiring is better than last year, but still companies are a little bit jittery and they're a little bit conservative in hirings. Yeah, but there are openings. I've seen this. There are many openings. So there's still a lot of potential really. So but I do believe this will get better in the next few months. That's how I see it. What follow-up actions can candidates take after submitting their CV to increase their chances of getting an interview? Yes, so this is a good question, and I'm glad someone asked this. Okay, so one other thing is, okay, someone applied and there's nothing. They aren't hearing anything, and now you want to do something, right? You just want to sit idle. So if you're applying to a big company where there is multiple layers and software systems, honestly, I don't think there's a lot you can do. If you're applied to a smaller company where there is a referral channel is very strong, and the person you know directly knows the hiring manager or whatever, then maybe you can try to say, understand where the process is and so on and so forth, right? This is still fine. But that doesn't happen so much. But if you're applying to a small company, because in Germany there are also so many smaller companies, right? Family businesses and whatnot. There, what can happen is that the HR, there's one single HR person basically doing the hiring thing. They're deciding, they don't really have complex software systems or whatever. That's if you're applying to a small company. I strongly recommend that, let's say you applied to the website or whatever. I strongly recommend that if you can find the contact of the recruiter or the hiring manager or whatever, send a nice professional email, right? Saying, maybe, expressing your interest in the role that you have applied, and maybe give some reasons why, you are a good fit for the particular role. I definitely recommend doing that if you're applying to a smaller company. If you're applying to Zalando, it doesn't really make a difference. There's so many layers behind, it won't reach anyone. There's a question from Adil is, does filtering apply when also recommended by some friends? Depends on the company, Adil. Depends on where they take that resume. But some companies have some policies saying that, okay, people who are coming through a referral, they will be looked at by a human. So some companies have that policy. So in that case, it gives you a benefit for sure, right? But if the company doesn't have that kind of a policy, then you're in the same pool. So not difference between CV and resume. Let me just check with the Velicham guys. So I'm okay extending for a few more minutes to answer the questions.
Yes,
Ramiz,
yes.
Yeah, totally.
okay,
Yeah.
fine, cool. Okay, so because I think people have very pertinent questions. Okay, one question is difference between CV and resume. Let me just go here. Okay, so resume and CV, curriculum vitae, or however you pronounce it, is typically a long document which is supposed to give a full picture of someone's body of work. This is typically for academic positions, grants, or fellowships, or these kind of things, where you have to show, see, I am this well-rounded, solid person, and all my work throughout has been so and so, right? And the details are very relevant. So this is entire academic and professional background. And CVs can be like 10 pages, 12 pages. That's not what you're doing for jobs. For jobs, you're making resumes which are small things, right, for that particular job, relevant to the particular job, which quickly highlight what your work experience and the relevant skills and competencies are. And these are mostly used for jobs. So the CV is more of a general document, right, which is your body of work. Resume is for that short document for that particular opening. So by nature, one resume for 20 job postings is stupid. So please don't do that. Many people have a tendency, but don't. But I hope this clarifies. It's a terminology thing. I'm sure you're not making CVs, but people use it interchangeably. Even I made that mistake, right? But be sure to realize when you're making a resume, you have to think of it as a tailored thing to quickly highlight your relevant skills and stuff. Okay, what about the importance of cover letter? I think in general, for most cases, in my experience, right, for let's say early career roles and so on, it's how you think about this. So imagine a position where there's 100 applications for junior developer role, but let's say 2 of them have a cover letter. What stands out? The one with the cover letter, because they put the extra effort in writing a cover letter. Just the fact that they have a cover letter gives an advantage. That's one. But for many other cases, it's not so important, I think. But where it really matters a lot, right? Let's say you had a gap in your resume for whatever reason. You had some, and things happen, life, right? Many things happen. You had to take a break to take care of your health, or take a break for marriage or something else, right? You often have these gaps in your resume or something, or you're making a major move to changing industry. So you work in, let's say, pharma, you want to go to, let's say, gaming industry, right? So for these things, right, where from your resume itself, it's not so obvious that there is a perfect fit, or if it raises a question, is this relevant, right? It is better to have a cover letter which explains that this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for, and this is how I can add value, right? So that's when you really want to have a resume and have a cover letter. And it's a cover letter. You have, again, there are templates. You make minor modifications. I suggest that you have a cover letter in general, even if no one looks at it. But it's good to have the cover letter, in my opinion, especially if there is something, let's say, not so usual about your application. You must have a cover letter, right? Okay. What are some different ATS compliant tools? I can check really, but I think Google search will give you a better result than I can. Okay. Shami says, getting a lot of replies as position is no longer available and contacted by staffing agencies. Are these ghost jobs trying to collect our data? Shamir, I honestly don't know, but it is a possibility, because this collection thing does happen, as a matter of fact, but it's hard to say, whether that particular thing was there. There's also a lag. Sometimes, there's also a lag that, see, whether if the company is hiring directly, then the recruiter is inside the company and they're up to date with what's happening. In fact, even in Zalando, I can tell you, right, there have been cases where the position was filled, but the hiring manager did not go into the system to mark it closed. As a result, the position was showing as open on the company website, right? So no one really was doing anything bad. It just was a small lapse, right? That is one reason it can happen. The other reason it can happen is, okay, many times the recruiting company doesn't want to take care of all of that. Company takes another agency to manpower agencies or whatever, right? Staffing agencies. And of course, if the more the parties are involved, the more inefficient the process with communication gaps. So what can happen is the requirement was there, it got filled, the hiring manager forgot to update the staffing agency forgot to update the candidates, and so on. So it could simply be inefficiency, right? So, and also, like you said, it could be also ghost companies, but I would say in general, that's not the first idea you should have. I think in general, this is a lot of cases where this is just inefficiency or human mistakes which is causing this. Yeah. How is the job market for data analysts in Germany for freshers? I think, like I said earlier, for technical roles and analytics and stuff, it was difficult last year, but it is getting better. I think I keep seeing multiple positions, right? And for freshers, depends on what kind of role you want. I see a lot of work student opportunities right now in Germany, right? Zalando has opportunities. So multiple companies have opportunities for work students. So if your goal is really getting experience and getting into the job market even as a work student, then I think there are opportunities right now, right? It's improving, and I think it will be better in 6 months for sure. One of the best, I think, one question, very important question, is one of the most common advice I get is to add measurable result. I'm not sure how to add a measurable result for what I've done. Example, web development using Angular. I think this is a good question, and this is something I was hinting at when I mentioned earlier. I like to see results, right? The results, if you have quantified results, that's good. But if not everything is quantifiable, some architect does something in the background, it's not always quantifiable. So it doesn't have to be measurable really, but in terms of numbers. But you can definitely add that, what the result of it. See, if you are using, let's say, a development using Angular or React, what was it for? If it was solving a particular business problem, let's say you did, just as an example, I'll take a different example. Let's say some analyst did some analysis, but they must be doing it for something, right? To be used somewhere, right? So some business outcome or some outcome, right? Which is either saving money, making money, or something. So for each project you do, make sure you have that in mind. So I did this analysis. This analysis informed the strategy of the company. That is the result. Even if you don't have a number right away that it saved us so many dollars, right? But even if you say I did this analysis which led to informed strategy, which went into the strategy, then that is also a decent result for me. You don't have to have numbers. Okay. How does the cover letter influence hiring? Most of the companies ask for it. Does it also influence ATS check? I don't think it influences ATS check, Fadil. But like I said, I suggest, I don't know if most companies are asking. I think it's an optional field. If you don't add it, it's fine. But like I said, it's a bonus if you add it. And especially for cases where you're either experience or this application is let's say, standard in a way. Freshers who have zero experience as a job role, they expect having a knowledge. Okay, so I think the question by Aishin is, and this is a very common, right? This is not particular to Germany, this is universal. Fresher roles also are demanding some sort of experience. But I think the question I have to understand is, see, a company is also not stupid, okay? And what's really happening is, as a hiring manager, I tell, hey, I want some person to have experience in Python because I'm in data analytics, product analytics. The hiring manager, I'm the hiring manager. And let's say I'm hiring a third-party staffing agency. The third-party staffing agency would like to get best candidates. and they do their own keywords or whatever and stuff like that, right? And what might happen is that they might add these things, which me as a hiring manager, right? Maybe it's not so important. I'm really not asking for someone with 3 years of experience for a fresher. But if you have this on your profile through something which is tangible, because let's say you say on your resume that I've done, in my university, I had so and so projects on Python. That's a bonus. You can put it over there. But then when it comes to the codility, if you fail the codility, then you're out automatically, right? So two things. One, if you have these things, put it on your resume because you have to go through the ATS as well. Second, if you have put anything, you better be skilled at it. So develop this, work on this, right? Using whatever tools and whatever methods you have, but start working on these skills so that if it is being tested, you score. And the thing is, if someone, let's say, so I get a resume who has scored good on the Python test, and if I see the resume, it is only academic work. I don't care, because in the end, they pass the codility test, which by design should tell me that, okay, this person can do decent on the job as well. Okay, so there's a design to certain things, right? So don't look at things in isolation. The codility test is designed in a way to gauge your Python skills. Okay, but yeah, in general, for those who want to get experience, freshers, make sure you do projects. It's really in the end about your skill. It's not about the certifications or whatever, but yeah, make sure you do something, either your side project, either contribution to an open source project, either a Kaggle competition, either a work student application, whatever. Just do something which gives you enough skill to pass the codility test afterwards. Okay. Okay. One question is, how much time? Okay, I think questions will never end for such a talk, but okay, let's finish this. How relevant is writing about your master's thesis in your resume, and which section should we put it? If done with an industry, should we put it under professional background or under education? If done with industry, I suggest you put it under professional experience, right? If done as purely like a like master's thesis, then I rather put it under education. But the way you put it, you highlight this particular part, because I've seen people even like write the name of the papers. So for example, if you have publications, make a separate section called publications, and then add those publications, right? So these so and so. Question from Abdul Munassir: can we use generative AI to write a cover letter too? Please make this very clear. You do not use Gen AI to write things for you. You use generative AI to get inspiration, and the final thing has to be in your words. It is very easy to identify that it is Gen AI drafted. It's very simple, actually. And more systems are now doing this. So my suggestion is, ask Gen AI to write certain cover letter, but make sure you write it in your own authentic voice. You can take inspiration, you can take formats, but for something like this, a cover letter, you don't want to be, poorly scored or dinged because, you did some silly mistake of using Gen AI lazy mistake of using Gen AI for writing everything, right? It's okay if your language is slightly imperfect. It's okay if you're not as concise, but Gen AI language right now is very, very easy to spot, by the way. I think the questions are not ending, but let me see.
Yeah, to interrupt you, like we have closed the chat.
Perfect.
We'll limit to whatever it is there.
Yeah.
If someone has really begging questions, they can raise their hands. But be very precise. But yeah,
Yeah.
we will stick to the.
Yeah, I'm seeing the questions, and I will address those which I feel is valuable to everyone, and I'll skip the very general ones. I think one is about confidential stuff. Okay, I think this is interesting. Some Maruf says, I've done thesis or internship which contains confidential work. How do I add relevant details in your resume? Okay, first of all, you don't have to add all details really. So for example, if I am working on, let's say, Flipkart, and I apply to Amazon, direct competition, I should not be giving them a lot of details about I worked on this project to increase click through by this person. That is actually like giving away proprietary information. So that's not a good idea, right? So in general, you don't have to have all of these details, right? And I don't know what confidential means in your case, but um, if you're talking about like in-depth numbers which are not available publicly, then it's a bad idea. Don't put it anywhere. But if it's about like if you see you're working on a top secret project, which it is not public, then you should not put it on the resume. But yeah, other general stuff like things on customer experience, this, that, and so on. I think you can put those stuffs without numbers which are giving away a lot of insider information. So don't do that. Okay, I will not answer the question about LinkedIn and job search platforms. It's a generic thing. You can search for it. Okay, last question is from Mohammed Noor Islam. Let's say a job posting for analyst asks for 3 years of experience. I have 2 years of experience from India in a different field, and 1 year as 1 year experience in Germany as a student in the relevant field. Will it count? Let me see again. Business analyst, the company wants business analyst for 3 years, and let's say, imagine you are the company. Okay, you want a business analyst with 3 years of experience. I tell you, I am a student. Okay, I'm a master's. I'm a first year, 1 year as a master. I'm a student, and for 2 years, I used to be a chaiwala in India. It's not a bad thing, but it's an irrelevant thing. Will you want to hire me? Will you want to consider my tea making experience as relevant for a business analyst? Well, of course not, right? So that's the point. No, this it will not be counted if it's a different field altogether. But that said, right, if you have skills on that role which are adjacent to the business analytics role, and you can justify it, then you can still put these 2 years of experience. So, for example, say you're applying for a business analyst role, but let's say you are in a financial analyst kind of a position in India. There are some common things you use, some common tools like Excel or whatever, right? You do analysis, you do quantitative stuff, and so on. You can still position those 2 years as an experience over there. Your 1 year of experience as a student, I don't think will count. I hope that helps. All right.
By student experience, I meant the working student and internship experience in Germany.
Oh, so okay. So if you're a working student in the same field, it counts. Definitely counts.
Yeah, thank you.
Business analyst role, right, is the target role. Your role as an intern was also for business analytics. Then it counts. All right. Cool. So then I think we are way over time. But yeah, I hope this discussion was helpful to you all. Okay. Start being active. Start using your networks. Really, I think something like Velicham, I think, is really valuable for you all. So engage with this group. Exchange ideas, help each other out, and community is really very important. You see, there's a hesitance within our community to use all these tools for some reason. I don't know why. I don't have any idea, but we should definitely try to use these. And myself, and other people, your friends, acquaintances. Just make sure you're using these things well. Make sure you're using all the network you have. Okay. There's a question by Benjamin.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rahim. I have one final question. So, what do you think of normally? I get advices like if you won't get a job by this November, then it's the winter, it's the break. Then probably you can look at the next March or April. What do you think on that? The timing where maximum hirings happen.
Oh, definitely there is a cycle. There is definitely a cycle, and there are reasons for it. Right, there is a budget, the budget is exhausted, and then there is no budget to hire for the people. March is when budgets are renewed, replenished. So again, you have more budgets coming. So it's a very definite pattern over there. Right. That said, so the openings in December, early January will be very low. That's a very common pattern. In fact, you can check trends. These are publicly available information. You can check trends online as well. I think, but for niche companies and so on, or for very specific roles, right, with high skill kind of a roles, you might still find these opportunities here and there during these times as well, right? So yeah, there is definitely a pattern. There is a very strong pattern. Okay, and yeah, the question is done, but I see that, there's very few people who have added me on LinkedIn. So please, this is, get the habit of, don't add me right now, it's okay, but get the habit of being on LinkedIn. All of you have LinkedIn installed on your phone as well. This is really becoming your digital reputation, folks, and you must know how to use it properly. Okay, follow influencers, not influencers, not, that's the wrong word. Follow like good, sane voices in your field who give you perspective on the technologies or the future and so on. Read articles, right? And that will help you a long way in building perspective and not just being a code monkey. Okay, so yeah, so I hope this was helpful, everyone. And if you have any questions, I think I don't know how much time I have for specific individual cases, but still use the Velicham group, talk to each other, and yeah, if you feel there is something you need to reach out to me for, reach out to me. I'll eventually answer you as well. I'm not sure, but I will try to answer as well.